How's it going, everybody? About 8 years ago now, that's crazy to say, I uploaded 2 videos about why I love learning Chinese and why I hate learning Chinese. And today I want to give kind of an updated perspective since it's been 8 years. And at that time, my level of Chinese was almost nothing, maybe an A1 if you're familiar with the Separate scale. And I'm at about a C1 now. I'm a translator. I have a couple years of translating experience, and I would say much more confident in my Chinese abilities overall. So I kind of want to give, like I said, an updated perspective on how my view has changed towards learning Chinese. I really need to get some anti-reflective glasses. I'm gonna take those off for the rest of the video, despite my dark circles. Okay, so in the first video, I'm gonna start with that, why I love learning Chinese. I give 4 reasons, and I'm not gonna react to the video here. They're actually unlisted, so if you want to watch them, I'll leave the links down below, but that was a long time ago, so my content style has changed, I've changed, and like I said, those are old me's views. So the first view that I give is cultural experience. I think I mentioned like the amount of people that speak Chinese. When you learn Chinese, you gain access to so many more people. Chinese, the Chinese variety that I speak, Mandarin, is known widely by the Chinese population, but it's actually not the only language spoken in mainland China. And I'm not trying to be gloaty here, but I would say my Chinese is actually more standard than a lot of people's Chinese, despite them being Chinese people. And the reason for that is because I learned it in school and I use it professionally, whereas a lot of people who live in China learn it in school, but they also have a main dialect they speak outside of that. And especially people who are more like blue collar workers or farmers, those kinds of people who are not maybe online all the time, maybe the older generation, they're more used to speaking their dialect. And I think my Chinese is even more standard than some people in like Tainan, especially like older people who mainly use Taiwanese. And not saying that mine is always better, but my pronunciation might sound a little bit more standard than theirs. So even despite that, those people could communicate with me just fine in Mandarin Chinese, and usually they're okay with that. So that's true, you do get access to a lot more people. One negative about this though is that because of how cut off the internet is in China, it's hard for me to find people from mainland China to connect with. One thing that's been nice about being back in Taiwan is I've been playing a lot of CS recently, and I get matched with a lot of Chinese players, so I've been learning like callouts in the game, or I've been learning like trash talk in Chinese, so that's been kind of interesting too. Another downside of this, I hate to be so negative, but is like movies. A lot of the best movies that come out of Chinese culture are actually in Cantonese, and I don't speak Cantonese at all. A lot of them will have like Chinese dubs, but at that point, why not just watch the English dub? Like if I'm not gonna see the original content, I'll just watch the English one. And another thing too is books are really hard to get access to. Like if you're just starting out in Chinese, like I was at that time, there's no way I'm gonna be able to read books in Chinese, or I mean really even watch movies in Chinese realistically. But despite having decent Chinese abilities now, there's still a lot of media that I just don't have access to because I'm not in that mainland Chinese culture. And Taiwan doesn't produce a lot of like TV series that I'm really interested in either. Yeah, that's not really the main reason I learned Chinese. Number 2, I mentioned no tenses and no conjugation. I'm actually going to group this in with the 4th reason that I list in that, which is intuitive grammar. I would say that the grammar in Chinese is like the easiest out of any language that I've even attempted to study. I have dabbled in a lot of languages. I've seriously studied maybe 3 if you count Spanish that I took in high school. And out of all of them, Chinese grammar is definitely the easiest. Yeah, there's no verb conjugations. The word order is the same as English, so it's subject, verb, object. And also adjectives will go in front of, in front of nouns like they do in English. So the red car would be 红色的车, 红色 being red, 车 being car. They do have duh, which is different than what we have in English, but yeah, I think the grammar overall is pretty intuitive. Usually the things that people will struggle with when learning Chinese, well, at least I did, were tones, which I'll get to later, and also characters, which again, I'll get to later. And there are some weird concepts for Americans or native English speakers to get a hold of, like ba is something we don't really use in English. I remember I was talking the other day about the character Ping. If you're a Chinese speaker, you might know that this character is kind of weird. We don't have a word like that. We would have to use a different grammar to use that kind of word in English. Without getting into too much detail for my English audience, it's just something that we would have to reorder our words to say, but they have one character for it in Chinese. Okay, I titled the video 5 reasons why I love learning Chinese, but I can't find the 5th reason. So I'm just gonna talk about the other one, which is radicals. I think this is just something that's nice. I don't think it's something that I would say I love about Chinese, but it is really cool and it's useful. I actually think I did a video before about all the different kinds of Chinese characters. Let me see if I did that or not. Okay, it looks like I did not end up making that video, but there are 4 or 5 different kinds of Chinese characters. If I did make that video and I didn't see it just now, it'll be down below or somewhere and you can check it out. But if not, I'll leave a wiki article that kind of explains everything that I'm gonna talk about a little bit here. Radicals are parts of a Chinese character that are used to combine with themselves, different radicals, to create new Chinese characters. So there are some fundamental radicals that are characters on their own, and then when you combine those with other characters, they combine to make a new character. This is nice when you're learning Chinese because you don't actually have to learn 5,000 different symbols. You're really learning like 200 to 300 and then combinations of those in different fashions. So it does make memorization a lot easier and a lot less daunting when you think like, oh, I have to memorize 5,000 different symbols. Well, it's not really true. You have to memorize like a tenth of that and then different variations of those. Cool, so that's all I have to say about 5 reasons why I love learning Chinese. And in the second video, I talk about 5 reasons why I hate learning Chinese. And I don't really know what these are gonna be or how I talked about these, but I don't really think they're that hard, especially in retrospect. Chinese is not that hard of a language to learn. I think really language learning in general is not that difficult. It just takes a lot of discipline and consistency. That's like the huge key point is consistency. If you take a break, it is like a huge detriment to your language learning progress. Just stay consistent and stay disciplined. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The first thing that I talk about is Chinese characters are hard to memorize. I kind of go against what I said then in the first video because radicals help you with that a lot. Also, I did not take this class that I have taken now, which is in my department, we have a class called Hanzi Ke. I think that's what it's called. And it's basically just the study of Chinese characters. And they kind of go into depth about the thing that I just mentioned before, which is how there are different kinds of Chinese characters. And once you kind of know about the different kinds that there are, it helps with memorization. Also, it's kind of like there's a learning curve where at first you're just grasping the rules of this language and it's really, really difficult. And then once you kind of get over this hump, things get a lot easier from then. I mean, it's pretty similar to like learning anything really. There's gonna be a huge learning curve once you first get started. And then once you know what you don't know and you get a better grasp of your goals, it makes it a lot easier. And once you're kind of familiar with how the system works, again, it makes it a lot easier. The second thing I talk about is traditional versus simplified characters. I would say this is not really something you need to worry about when you're starting to learn Chinese. If you want to end up learning both, it is slightly easier, I've heard, to start with traditional and then go to simplified. In reality, it probably doesn't matter that much. And if you know who your target audience is, like who you think you'll end up speaking Chinese with the most, just learn what they use. So I knew I was going to live in Taiwan, even though currently I use simplified Chinese for work because my company is a mainland Chinese company. I feel like it's really not that hard to cross over. There really aren't that many characters that are different from simplified to traditional either, so it's not something that you have to worry about that much. Number 3 is Chinese tones. Yeah, this is a hard one. This is something that's kind of annoying, and I would say you should focus on this a lot when you first start learning Chinese if you're interested in that, because pronunciation habits are the hardest to change after having had the same habit for a long time. If you learn a new grammar and you realize, oh, I've been saying this wrong for the past 2 or 3 years, I need to change this. Or if you learn a word and you think it means this, but a year or 2 later, you find out, oh, it actually is used in this context, not the one I was using it previously. Like that's something that you can change cognizantly. It's not something that you have to think about that much, but tones and pronunciation as a whole, like as a concept as a whole, are something you should focus on a lot because that will affect how you say every single thing from then on out. So it's super important and it's really hard to change. It's like having a speech impediment and then ignoring that impediment until you get older. It's like way harder to change after the fact. So I would focus on this a lot. It is really hard, especially if you come from a language without tones, but there are only four in Chinese, four and a half if you count a toneless word, but it's not really that bad. Once you focus on it for a few months, it will feel really difficult in the moment, but like I said, focus for a few months, lock in, and after that, things will get a lot easier. It's only another thing too that's nice about tones is it's only something you have to focus on for a little bit. Once you've grasped the concept and once you're good at it, you don't really need to pay that much attention to it for the rest of your Chinese learning journey. The fourth thing I mentioned is measure words, which I just think is so funny because measure words are like so daunting to early Chinese language learners, but they're something that's almost never used in the sense that you think they'll be used in when you're starting to learn Chinese. Once you start learning Chinese, they give you this long list of measure words, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to memorize all these and the different situations they're used for? There's really only like a handful of them that are used daily, and in the end, just use ge and you'll be fine. Nobody will really care. If you're not familiar with what measure words are, we have them in English actually as well, like pair. So a pair of shoes instead of a shoe. That's an example of a measure word, or like a layer versus 2 layers, 3 layers, 1 sheet of paper, 2 sheets of paper. Sheet would be the measure word there. Layer would be the measure word in the previous example. Like those are examples of measure words. You don't actually need to use them all the time though in Chinese. There are a few that, like I said, are important to know for certain situations, but if I say 这个椅子 instead of 这张椅子, like it doesn't really matter that much. They'll still understand what you're trying to say. Or 这个鱼 instead of 这条鱼, like who cares? It doesn't matter that much. In situations where it's important is probably similar to situations where it'd be important in English. Like if I said this shoe instead of this pair of shoes, that pair is obviously important because it affects the actual meaning of what I'm trying to say. Number 5 is some sounds aren't in English. This kind of pairs with the tones too. Like I said, pronunciation as a whole. So all the comments that I made when talking about tones apply to this one too. Focused on it early on. I think it's really the same with any language too. Like most languages that are not your native language will have at least some sounds that your native language does not. So, or they won't be pronounced the exact same way. So I think it's just something that you need to focus on early on. And yeah, just like I said, lock in for a few months. And once you get a grasp of it, it's not something you really have to worry about later on. You'll get kind of in the rhythm of things and you won't need to focus on it too much. Cool. So those are how my opinions have changed towards Chinese. I think I feel pretty neutral towards all of these. I don't think I love one or the other or hate one or the other more than... I don't think I love or hate these as much as I did at that time. I will say the cultural experience is something that I do enjoy the most. Out of all of these, I would say that's the one that I still have kind of strong feelings towards. It's nice to make friends from a different culture in a different country. I have Taiwanese friends here now too who speak English at varying levels, and being able to connect with them in their native language is something that's nice. Even if they speak English, if I speak English to them and they speak Chinese to me, they feel like they can confidently express themselves better. And yeah, that's really nice to be able to connect with somebody at that deeper level. That's why I'm studying Korean now. Hopefully I can do that with people from Korea as well, including my girlfriend and her family too. So I don't know, we'll see. Recently I went to Japan. Got some classic beer chocolates. I'll be trying these out probably in a reel or a short. And yeah, I'll show more about my trip in Japan at some point too. So if you're interested in that, or Taiwan, or language, or tattoos, or whatever other junk I post up on here, let me know in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.